What is the craziest way you've seen someone cheat on a test? My brother has diabetes and he didn't study for his math test. The class before, he gave himself too much insulin so that his blood sugar would drop in the middle of the test. He asked if he could go to the nurse's office to check his blood sugar. The teacher took his test and told him to finish it tomorrow. Before he left, he wrote down all the problems to the test and went home and solved them. He got an A+ on that test. A while back in this business law class I took, we had a final that was online, multiple choice, had to be completed in 90 minutes, and there were 90 questions. We had a minute per question for a business law class and each of them were pretty detailed. A couple classmates asked if I wanted to take it with them and I declined. So anyways, I heard that half of the class ended up taking the final together. They started and ended at different times. They assigned groups of 3 to 10 questions each. For certain questions they decided to choose different answers so they didn't have the same answer as the rest of the group. One person had a running list of the answers that they found. Once I made the effort to scan in the label of a water bottle, Photoshop a bunch of info onto it in the form of nutrition information and branding, printed it back out, cropped it, and slapped it on the bottle. Worked like a charm, except that, by that point, I'd memorized the info I spent so much time placing on the label. Saw a stack of Acofina labels lying around in my friend's dorm room and noticed that the nutrition facts and ingredients space was blank. When I asked about it, he proceeds to show me a template on his computer to type out answers onto the label's blank spaces. He just prints out his cheat sheet, wraps it around a spare water bottle, and keeps it on his desk while taking the test. In a listening language test, the smart guy would cough if the correct answer was A, scratch his ear for C, fiddle his pencil for D, and most brilliantly, do nothing if the answer was B. A kid in my grade 11 social studies class made a huge poster-sized cheat sheet and hung it on the building across from our classroom so that he, and several other students, could see it when they looked out the window. The teacher never suspected anything until the principal happened to walk by outside and noticed it and gave the funniest look at our classroom through the window. Someone got in trouble, but secretly, I think the principal was actually kind of impressed. Had a friend try to learn Braille so he could cheat in Spanish. He soon realized it was just easier to study Spanish than learn Braille, plus he had no real way of actually generating Braille cheat sheets. As a teacher, I had a totally different person try to take an oral English test in place of one of my students. It was obvious because I knew all the students, despite having 200 students that semester and stereotype of white people thinking all Asians look similar, and I definitely knew the students who had enough English to argue politics. The exam was fun, we had a good conversation, and the student got the only F in the class. Our high school had a uniform, which was pleated skirts for girls. I knew someone who would put strips of paper in the hidden part of the pleats. It wasn't too obvious to check and no one was going to ask her to unfold her skirt. I also knew someone who had their friend distract the teacher so that he could sneak into the classroom, put the CD for the test bank in the computer, and memorize the answers to the final. He got over a 90% on the 100-question test, which makes me believe he was smart enough to not have needed to cheat. Geography, the teacher was quite old with a very thick glass. One of my friends simply wrote and drew random things on the blackboard, then erased it to make it look like a dirty blackboard, wrote the test subject on the blackboard, then lightly erased them just enough to be readable from the back row. The whole class cheated on that day. My friend stole the USB drive from our teacher's projector table in chemistry. We were given MacBook Airs as school-supplied tech for the entire year, so he just airdropped the whole USB to every student in the class and put the actual drive back on the table mid-lecture. That dude sells drugs now. I mean, he did in high school too, but as far as I know that's all he does. Brilliant mind that just doesn't give a shit. Someone at my school placed a cheat sheet underneath his legs. When he needed it he'd open them, and when the teacher was looking he'd close them. The teacher caught him doing this and confronted him during the test. She told him, "I want you to give me what's between your legs." Everyone laughed when she realized what she'd said. Seen a girl write formulas on her cleavage and look down at it during a test. Professors can't really look, but she showed us later. I'm taking a math test in college and I notice a guy sitting next to me is cheating off of my test. For some reason, I decided to help him out, so I just let him keep on looking. Eventually he starts making weird hand motions. I realize he's asking me to turn back a page. In for a penny, in for a pound, so I do. We go through 3 whole pages together and eventually he's whispering questions at me. Ridiculous. Then, out of nowhere, he farts louder than I've ever heard anyone fart before. Everyone in a 20-foot radius turns and looks at him. I keep my head down, finish my test, all the while he doesn't look at me or signal to me again. I left and never saw him again. That was the craziest I've seen, not because it was clever, but because it was the ballsiest turned weirdest cheating I've ever seen. Subscribe to our channel if you liked our videos. Hit the notification bell to get notified.